Can go ahead and get going. So again, welcome to our fiscal year 2026 tutorial on our grants for South Carolina's Department of Environmental Services. Today, let's see if I can move us forward. So just a couple of things about our meeting logistics. So as you all see, your mics are not on, nor are your cameras. We just didn't want to have too much background sound just in case someone forgot to turn them off. But our chat is open, so please put your questions in there as we're going along, and we can try to make sure we get those covered. We are going to have time after each section to have some questions, and this is the time for you all to pick our brains. However, we are always willing to have time once this session is over, more one-on-one time if you all need that. And if you do have a question, we'll be monitoring the chat as well as the people to see if you do have a question, you can also raise your hand and I can unmute you there as well. Just to give you all a little bit of an idea of what we're going to be covering today. So Richard's going to fill us in on some program updates, and then we'll hear from Woody for used oil. Then I am going to end up talking about our solid waste grants, as well as kind of quickly put a plug for school and colleges and universities. And then we're going to have Woody talk about a waste tire, as well as, again, have some time for questions. And then for those of you who are interested in either discussing more of the hub and spoke system grant, as well as brainstorming with others and trying to make connections, we'll have some time once all of this is done for you all to stay on the line. So with that, Richard, if you'd like to go ahead and unmute yourself and give us a little bit of an update for our office, feel free to do so.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Truly appreciate y'all being here. And I always look forward to these and getting to talk with everyone. Just a couple program updates and actually staff updates. A couple things going on I want you to be aware of. Number one, as most of you know, Caitlin left and she went to Idaho. Her husband was transferred. He's in the Air Force. She was doing our action curriculum and outreach overall and some other projects. I'm hoping to post that position. I've been waiting to post that position for quite a while, but anyway, I hope it's this week. But Caitlin's position is open, and we added Savannah Murray. Savannah, if you don't mind saying hey to everyone. Once, twice, Savannah. You unmute?
I'm not sure if she is on yet, but
okay.
I'll try to see if she's there and then have her.
My bad. I thought, yeah, there may be a glitch, but Savannah has taken Ada's spot on the Don't Waste Food SC campaign, and we will we're making that a huge priority and change some of the Ada left us in great shape, but Savannah is been hired. She's from Lexington and a recent graduate at University of South Carolina, and I'm glad to have her on board. Couple of major projects we got going on. We did get as all of you or most of you know, we did get a Swiffer grant from EPA to solid waste infrastructure. We have 6 or 7 projects in that grant. Right now, we're still okay in funding. I know there's a lot of chaos in Washington, but right now we're still okay in that funding. We did have a meeting a week or so ago on the MSW characterization study. We're moving forward with that. We got a new timeline I'll be sharing with you at the landfills that we'll be visiting the consultants, MSW consultants out of Orlando. Looking that we'll have that wrapped up starting maybe in April and wrapped up as early as June if EPA approves. We're trying to get 2 seasons, but we're going to be at several Class 3 landfills, several Class 2. We're going to be at some transfer stations and to gather the data. I'm very excited about that because this is the first statewide study we've done. I've been here since the office began in '91. We've done little things, and a lot of you, like Horry County and others, have done their own, and we'll be integrating that information. Horry County's done one here in the past year or two. But that's moving forward. We also will be doing, as this plan or this study moves forward, uh, uh, Sally, in the reg development planning section, will be doing an RFP for the state plan update. The plan has not been updated since 1999. Technically, it's updated in the solid waste plan, but anyway, there'll be an RFP item. We'll be starting work on the state plan this, I assume, late summer, early fall, and we will be looking for seriously looking for a work group, some stakeholders from local governments that want to be involved one way or another, and let us know your thoughts. We do want you involved in the study. We do want you involved in the development of a new plan. We're trying to be as transparent as possible. So that's the battle plan right now. There was new legislation that Woody will talk about. I'm just going to touch base and say there was new legislation introduced on tire management, waste tire management. So some significant changes, several of which will provide more funding to us and you, and some other issues. Woody will go in depth on that. Frankly, personally, I think it's fairly good legislation. It's not perfect, nothing is, but uh, that's something you need to be aware about. So the MSW study, the development of the state solid waste management plan, the tire legislation. We are also trying to remember. I will backtrack a second and tell you real quickly that uh, the agency will be basically a year old this upcoming July. The interim director, Myra Reese, has made recycling a priority of the agency. I'm sure that all the other folks on the environmental side just love us for that. But anyway, the point is that it is a priority. That is a serious obligation on our part, and we are made some adjustments to try to get the recycling rate up, more material recovered, less contamination. And one of those things that Myra is helping us do is the hub and spoke, trying to begin a hub and spoke infrastructure. And well, I think Grace Ann will talk about that more a little bit later. Am I correct?
Yes, you're correct, Richard.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, the on the hub and spoke, that's basically to make the priority there is to make it. We have limited funding, and we're trying to make what funding we have more efficient. I will say, as most of you know, if not all, we did not get the Swiffer funding we thought we would. We just missed that, but there is another round of Swiffer funding coming up. We'll see if that works out again with all the chaos in Washington. But Myra and the agency did ask for $5 million for the hub and spoke system. And that basically was Stephanie running, us running the program. That will be a grant program that Stephanie will be part of the trust fund administration, make part of the trust fund administration. And right now, our goal is 100% of that funding would be, we'll just absorb that, but that will be for grant programs. A priority of that will be organics recovery. Doesn't mean we can't do any other commodities. I'll talk about that more later, but we are pushing the hub and spoke. We will be starting an ambassador program that with the Don't Waste Food. We already have one, but we've tweaked it and tweaked it and tweaked it, and actually have something in place right now that we'll be announcing in April. That's our plan for Earth Day, one of our plans for Earth Day. The ambassador program, anybody can be an ambassador if you are participating in food waste prevention and or promoting it. That means any local government, whatever. We want all of you to be involved and I hope become a ambassador and link to the site and do all that. There'll be a community ambassador too, and that person will be the local leader, and we will have workshops to train these folks and get them a toolkit and other things they need and provide technical assistance. They'll be the lead in communities, counties, whatever. We're looking to get a big group of community ambassadors going as well. Uh, Tires. Oh, we will be starting. And we haven't quite. Honestly, I didn't mean to stumble. We have not just done it yet, but we've had some changes with our commerce funding and contract. But we will be sending each of you the market prices that will be coming through the Smart Business Program. Um, Here in the next week or two, we'll restart that information. It's valuable to you guys. Grace Ann, have I left anything out of the biggies?
Not that I'm aware. I think that you touched on a lot of the different things that we've been doing in our office. But I did want to let you know, Richard, Savannah is now on the call. So, Savannah, if you'd like to just quickly introduce yourself, and Richard, I think, was stealing your thunder a little bit by letting them know about the Don't Waste Food ambassador program. But Savannah is going to be the one kind of working on that.
She can repeat. That's good.
Yes, hi, my name is Savannah Murray. I'm the newest member of the recycling team. I am the new coordinator of Don't Waste Food SC. And like Richard was saying, I am going to be in the process of revamping our ambassador program. Um, I want everyone to feel included, no matter how much or how little they know about food waste. I'd like to get everyone involved, if possible. And yeah, a big part of that will be the community leaders. They will be an extension of us and will be our main people that will go and spread information and promotional materials to their communities. So that's about it.
Thank you, Savannah. Well, and Savannah has already gotten her feet wet and went to a conference, the Farm to School Summit last week. So we're already getting her out and about. But if you, Savannah, if you want to put your email address in the group chat, people can kind of have access to that for if they have any questions in the future.
Yes, of
But yes, we're
course.
excited to have Savannah on board. Richard, anything else that you want to say for program updates?
No, unless you'll be discussing, I don't have the agenda in front of me. I was looking on this. Anyway, the point is smart business and reporting. You'll touch base on that later.
I don't think that we've included that as much, but as some of you all know, so I'm our Recycle Right SC coordinator. I failed to introduce myself. So I'm Grace Ann Martin. I am the Smart Business Recycling Coordinator or Business Recycling Program Coordinator. So essentially, I work with businesses around the state to try to provide them with resources to implement recycling, as well as try to have them provide us with their data that they've collected throughout the year for their recycling efforts. And that information is not required by law to be provided to us, unlike the cities and counties are, but it's very helpful in being provided with that information as it gives us a more comprehensive look of what the health of recycling looks like throughout the state. So that data is used in our solid waste management annual report. And we can have that available for county councils for helping to decide budgets for you all. And then also, I am the Recycle Right SC coordinator. So you all probably get a lot of emails from me. Through both our solid waste grants at des.sc.gov email address, as well as my personal email, as I serve as the liaison between DES or SCDES with all the counties and cities. So if you all ever need a brainstorming partner, or if you have any issues that you can't seem to be able to figure out how to handle in-house, you're always welcome to come and give us a call, and we can try to help you figure out a solution. So yeah, that's kind of what we're going to be talking about a little bit today is more of the solution side through grants. And so we have Richard, who is our supervisor or our office manager, or excuse me, the manager for this office. But then we also have Woody Barnes and Stephanie Vandiver on the call. And I'll let them kind of introduce themselves when they start to speak. But I'm sorry, I did not have us introduce ourselves really quickly for those who are new on the call. But with that said, I will go ahead and pass the baton to Stephanie. So, Steph, if you just want to quickly introduce yourself and let folks know what your role is, and then give us a little more information just to give that big picture of why we're doing grants in the first place. And Steph, I think you are still muted. So if you began
I was. There we
Okay,
go.
there
Can you
you
hear me
go.
now?
Yeah, we
Great.
can hear
Thank
you,
you,
but we
Grace
can't
Ann.
see you.
And I've tried to take control of, not sure if you've seen that yet. My name is Stephanie Vandiver. I have been with this office since 1994. Savannah introduced herself as the newest, and I remember when I was the newest, and it does go by very quickly. Thank you all so much for attending the workshop today. I hope that you can take away some information to help you write your grant applications this year. And we are always here to help you with those. If you have questions that don't get answered today, please feel free to call any of us on the team. My role in the grants has changed over the past couple of years. I don't have a specific grant program any longer, but I'm still closely involved with the grants, and I work closely with Grace Ann and Woody. And then our new team member who will be replacing Caitlin will also have assigned grant programs. So our state recycling goals. By the year 2030, we are hoping to have a 50% recycling goal and less than 3.25 pounds per person per day for our disposal goal. The current recycling rate is 20.9%. So we are a ways off from that goal, but hopefully some of these grants will help you get closer in your county or city. Oh, how do I go back, Grace Ann? Thank you. A breakdown of our funding sources, so you know where these grant fund, the monies come from for these grants. There's a $2 fee on lead acid batteries and a $2 fee on appliances. That makes up the funds for the solid waste grants. $2 fee on tires, and those are new replacement tires. Those, of course, make up our tire grant program. And then there is a 2-cent per quart of motor oil for the used motor oil grant program. And those fees have remained in place since the act was written in 1991, which unfortunately is why we have not been able to offer the grants that we did years ago, because our funding has changed. So reminders for applications, please submit them electronically to our swgrants@des.sc.gov email. We all have access to that email and check it multiple times a day, so that is the best place to send applications to. The deadline is 5:00 p.m. on Friday, April the 4th, that first Friday in April. Please send it in a PDF or Microsoft Word format. Answer all the questions completely. Even if you don't have a question that you have an answer for, at least put NA so we know that you just didn't miss answering that question. And please use the correct applications, and that would be the current year applications. Sometimes those applications don't change much, and sometimes they do. So please do not use old applications. Send in this year's application. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Woody for our used oil grants.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Let's see. I'll try to take control of the slides here. I've been working in the grants program probably 10 years or more. Excuse me, I've got a little frog here in my throat. But primarily I deal with the waste oil grants and the waste tire grants. We work as a team here, and so we ask that when you send in any reports or emails or things, that you use the SW Grants email, and then that way, if someone's not available, somebody else can jump in and answer the questions for you. But with the let's see. So do I now have control? Yeah.
You do, Woody. You should be able to just click for it now. Can you try it with your mouse? I wonder if that'll make it work for you. If not, I'll go ahead and move us forward for you.
Okay. All right, so I can give you a little bit of little history, I guess, on the current FY25 oil grants. We had 48 grantees that were awarded grants for the FY25 cycle. The awards totaled about $760,388. That's a figure, that comes from those fees that Stephanie talked about on the used oil. But each year, Stephanie will figure out, what the budget is for the used oil grants. We take a look at all the applications that are submitted, and then try to figure out how best to meet all of those needs. Last year, FY25, one of the ways that we were able to, I guess, cut down to that amount was we looked at the number of tanks that folks were requesting, and we figured if we limited that to 2 tanks per grantee, that would help us get within the budget. And then also on the request for spill supplies, we reduced the overall request by 10% across the board in order to get to the budget that we needed to be at. So the reason I mention that is that in your grants program, especially the used oil grant, if you have needs, you have some things that you'd like to have, I say, go ahead and request those. And then what I'll do, do the best that we can to try and get everything funded. If it's a year where, not many folks have requested as much, then I may have a little bit more to work with. So that's why I always encourage the grantees to, take a look around and see what they need, see what they really like to have. Put that in your request, and then we'll do the best we can to meet those needs. Oh, okay, let's go on to the next slide then. So with the oil program, we'll describe, I guess, the model oil program. And this is what we'd like, all the counties to have available. The do-it-yourself used oil collection, those are the smaller oil tanks that generally you'll have at most of your convenience centers. But we also would like each county to have at least one gas oil mixture tank, and then also at least one farmer oil collection tank, and then also means for collecting the oil filter bottles and oil filters for recycling. So when we talk about the model oil program, these are the types of things that we'd like for each county to have. Let's get to the next slide. So at your convenience centers for the model oil site, this is the way we'd like to have the site set up. So with your oil tanks, we'd like for you to have secondary containment around the tanks, just, so when you have spills that they're contained. We'd also like to have these tanks kept underneath a carport or a shelter and on a concrete pad. We'd like for the bottle and filter oil collection containers to be there. It may be helpful to label these because, with some of the vendors, when they're collecting the oil filters, you could get dinged for a contamination charge if you have a lot of trash or even a little bit of trash in these collection containers. So we try to help with signage or whatever creative ways that you think will help as far as reducing or eliminating contamination. You can request those through the oil grant. The bottle drain racks, this helps with the oil filter bottles. It helps getting the oil drained out of the bottles for recycling. And then we also have available assistance for purchasing the spill kits and the spill socks to help keep the sites clean whenever you have the spills. Obviously, you'd want to keep those spill materials on site wherever you have a used oil tank for collection, so that they're readily available if you have a spill. And then I mentioned the SBCC plan. If your aggregate, your total capacity for used oil collection exceeds 1,320 gallons on site, then you'll need a spill plan in place. All right, so let's get to the next slide. So here's some examples of a model oil site. You can see the concrete pads underneath the tanks. A couple different types of tanks here, but you'll notice that they're covered with the carport. They're on a concrete pad. You've got the tank there for the collection of the oil. One thing that's helpful with some of these sites, when you're designing your site or you're adding a new area for used oil collection to your site, one thing that's helpful is if you have a kind of a barrier or a wall installed that faces to the west. And that way, because most of our prevailing winds in South Carolina come from the southeast or the southwest. So if you have a wall there on the western side, it helps prevent that water, rain, from blowing into your site. And the less amount of rain, water that you have, getting into your spill containment vessels, the better off you'll be. So that's another little tip that I would mention. So let's get to the next slide. So for the FY26 used oil grants, the priorities for FY26 are pretty much the same as last year. We always want to prioritize new collection areas or expanding your used oil collection centers. The grants can help with your contractor costs. Now, in the past, sometimes there were costs from vendors for collecting the motor oil, but since the current state contract went in place, they actually pay for some of your used oil. So that basically means that, and we can only reimburse these costs based on the state used oil contract. So with them paying for used oil, we can't really provide any funds for the collection of the motor oil, but we do for the filters. With the filters, I think the state rate is $15 per 55-gallon drum. So if you're collecting your filters in the oil drum, then that's the rate. If you're collecting your oil filters in, say, like a 300-gallon tote, then you'll have to do the conversion there to just do the math to make it $15 per 55 gallons. And that would be the maximum rate that we can reimburse your contractor costs on oil filter collections. We provide funds for equipment and supplies. So a lot of this is, spill supplies or, a variety of things that help with your used oil collection. With the used oil grants, it has to be for used oil collection. So sometimes we get requests for, say, items to help with antifreeze collection. Well, unfortunately, we can't do that. Now, we can help you with some supplies for your antifreeze collection, but it would have to come through the solid waste grant and not the used oil grant. We provide funding for public education. So these are, flyers, things to educate your citizens on the types of services you provide for oil collection. This can be done a number of ways. You have billboards, mailers, apps, a number of things that we've been able to help fund through the used oil grant. We also have a professional development. So up to $750 is available through the grant for used oil collection. And you do have to request that. It's not something that's automatic. So in your application, be sure to include that $750 for professional development. And then other costs as funding is available. So occasionally, someone may want to take their used oil to have have a waste oil heater on site and use the used oil to for the waste oil heater. And as funds are available, then we may be able to accommodate those requests. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Used oil contractor reminder. So DES does maintain a list of the registered used oil transporters that you can use for your oil collection services. A lot of the counties use the Go for Oil service. It's free. And I mentioned that the grant will only pay at state contract rates. The current state contract, I think, expires in July of 2026. So we still got a little over a year left on that contract before it gets renewed. And then contamination charges that I mentioned with the used oil filters. Unfortunately, we can't pay for those costs. So as an example, I mentioned the $15 per 55-gallon drum. Sometimes the contractor will charge you $50 for a contaminated drum. Now, so you can only request $15 of that invoice to be reimbursed through the grant. So we can't pay for any contamination charges there. All right, let's go to the next slide. So more oil storage capacity. So I mentioned, we like to we would like to get as many of these collection sites as possible. Having more capacity kind of gives you a little more flexibility on the site in terms of, if you've the more oil storage capacity you have, then it makes it more efficient for the haulers to pick up the oil. If you got one tank and you got another tank in reserve, then they can come and pick up both tanks on one trip. Just makes it more efficient. And then also with contaminant monitoring, if you've got two small tanks as opposed to one big tank, if you had a contamination incident, then you're only, you're contaminating a smaller amount as opposed to, one whole large tank becoming contaminated. All right, let's get to the next slide. So, oil grant public education projects. So I mentioned there were a number of things that you can do. These projects, like I said, they have to feature used oil recycling. Now, if you were to put say a billboard and you wanted to advertise both your used oil program and your waste tire program. Well, since we don't have funds available in the waste tire grant for public education, you could combine them both and then apply for funding or be reimbursed the funding for the used oil grant for the billboard. That's kind of a creative way to use your used oil funds for other aspects of recycling. So if you, like I mentioned with the, I had a county recently had I thought a pretty good idea on with their drums. They were having a contamination problem with the waste oil drum and I guess their antifreeze bottle collections, and so they were able to. They were looking at purchasing this kind of a secured vault area that it could house up to 2 drums, and then that way have one drum there that used specifically for the collection of their waste oil filters, and then they'd have another drum there that they could use for collecting other commodities, and that would be fine. It just say as long as it's some aspect of it is involving used oil recycling. So if you do split fund something between your say your waste oil grant and your solid waste grant, then on your invoices, you submit your invoices for reimbursement. Just make a notation on the invoices, what percentage is coming you want reimbursed from the waste oil grant and what percentage would come from the solid waste grant. And then it just makes it a little easier because generally I will deal with the reimbursements on the used oil invoices, and someone else may be working with the solid waste. So that kind of helps us compare notes and make that happen for you. So if you have any questions on project ideas for your public education projects on used oil, just give me a call, because working with the variety of counties, there are a lot of great ideas out there. Maybe I can pass something along that someone else is using that might be beneficial for you. All right, so let's see. Let's go on. FY26 oil grant modifications. So after you've received your grant, if for some reason you run into an emergency situation where you have to get a tank replaced, then just make that request in writing, and then I generally will have to go back through the Solid Waste Advisory Committee to get an increase approved for you. But we can do that. It doesn't take very long, actually. And then, so, if you get in that situation, just make that request. And also, we can provide extensions if you need more time, say, to get a new concrete pad and carport set up. You can make that request for either a 90-day or 100-day extension if you know it's going to be more than 3 months to get your project taken care of. Just go ahead and request that 180-day extension right to start with, and we can make that happen for you. Those requests, though, they also need to be made at least 30 days before the end of the grant. So that's about the same time, I guess, the deadline for your purchases. Your purchase for equipment and supplies you have to make those procurements at least 30 days before the end of the grant. Okay, so let's see what else we got here for the used oil. So I guess that's about it. Do we have any questions out there on the used oil grants and what we got planned for FY26? Guess we can take a look in the chat, see if there's anything
I'm not seeing
there in the
anything
chat.
right now, Woody, but if anybody does have a question, feel free to put it in there, or you can raise your hand and I'll unmute you. And again, I know that was some good information. So if you need to get in touch with us afterwards with those questions, and once you're in the midst of trying to do the application, as Woody said, you're always welcome to give him a call.
Okay, so I guess we can move on. I'll be back with you shortly to talk about the waste tire grants, but I'll turn it back over to Grace Ann.
All right, thank you, Woody. So I'm going to go more into detail about our solid waste grants. Woody kind of manages the used oil and waste tire. I manage more of the solid waste. And Stephanie, she's the one that I always use as my sounding board. So, and she's been kind of stepping up in times when Woody and I can't get to some of the requests in a timely manner. So thank you all, first off, for your patience when reaching out to us. And we definitely try to get back as quickly as we can while handling some other responsibilities with the office. But this year, so we are going to be having kind of two categories under our solid waste grant. The first is our general recycling. This one has not changed from last year. With this grant, you can request up to $15,000. Within that $15,000, $5,000 of that can be used for education and outreach. You can also we were going to have people request $750, but this year we're going to kind of stick with what we've done in the past, and we are just going to provide each group that is awarded a grant. They will be provided with $750 just for professional development. So you can apply both to the general recycling grant, but you can also apply to our kind of category 2, which is what we're calling our hub and spoke program. So on your application, you'll see category 1 as general recycling, and then category 2. Last year, it was a creativity and waste management. We found that people just had kind of a harder time kind of figuring, with new technology, how they could use that grant, especially since that new technology was maybe a little bit more expensive than what we were able to provide. So this year, and kind of moving forward in the next years, we're going to be focusing our attention on the hub and spoke program. So with this category 2 grant, it is going to be competitive, and we have $600,000 that we're going to be splitting between the hubs and the spokes. So our plan right now is that we're going to have up to 100,000 grants, max grants that we would be providing for the hubs, and then probably 50,000 max grants for spokes. And so with the focus of this hub and spoke program, it will be used for kind of supporting recycling, composting, and or food waste prevention. So Richard's going to speak a little bit more to that in a few minutes, but I wanted to kind of break down how you can use the funding for the general recycling, or that category 1. So with that, our goal is to kind of help with that, Our goal is to try to use those funds to help achieve the recommended state recycling and or disposal goals. So again, trying to reach that 50% of municipal solid waste being recycled by 2030. So this funding can be used both in a residential concept I cannot speak. I am so sorry. Residential setting as well as commercial recycling activities. And as we said, you can request up to $15,000 and potentially get funded $15,750, both with the professional development being provided as well as 5,000 of that 15,000 can be used for outreach and education. So please disregard the last bullet, as we're going to have that apply next year, but not this year. So we get a lot of questions about what that $15,000 can be used to cover. So for us, we see it as just equipment and supplies, as well as outreach and education. Unfortunately, we're not going to be doing recurring cost, as that could quickly be something that we may not be able to cover in future years, and we don't want you all to get stuck. We also are going to hold off on having it be used for anything that is garbage related, as well as motor oil related, since we have had that covered with our used oil grants. So if you're going to be getting a compactor, it has to be used for recycling and not for trash, as well as if you're getting cans, it has to be used for recycling and not for garbage. In terms of equipment, we wanted to provide you all with some examples of what would fall under those categories. So roll-off containers for things like tires, your recyclables, your yard waste, as well as curbside recycling carts. These are all ones that I think have been funded through our office. We also have signage. Signage can fall more with equipment, especially if you're trying to use your outreach funds for something else. So on your signage, you can list the times that you're open, the material that's being accepted, as well as where to dispose of that material. And with our office, we do have Greg Glimpf, who is our graphic designer, and Greg has a lot of different signs that he has already created that can be used kind of across counties. But if you're needing something specific that is for your county, he can go in and kind of make it to where it fits your county needs. So just kind of keep that in mind. And if you are going to be using Greg or any of our funds to create these materials, it needs to have somewhere on there funded by, and then our SCDES logo, as well as it needs to be approved by our office before it's printed or procured. Other equipment could be signs that are like stands. So I think this was Greenville County. It says it right on the this side. But kind of like food waste recycling or some little like trifold boards that you pop up around town, or around your facilities. Some other equipment examples include electronic or e-scrap collection boxes, battery collection boxes, cooking oil recycling. So cooking oil falls under our solid waste grant. It doesn't fall under the used oil. So that's something that we would be covering with the solid waste grant. You can get balers for recycling, multifamily housing bins or like tote bags, getting attendance buildings if you need to have those setups. If you have a swap shop that you're wanting to establish, we can get kind of the cover or the shed, or if you need to have a concrete platform for different covered areas, you can do that as well. And then backyard compost bins, even if you're going to be handing those out to the public, those could also fall under equipment. For our outreach and education, so we do have some forms for that, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but with outreach and education, you have to have that approved by our office before you go and you purchase anything. So that's both in terms of the logos that you put on there and kind of like the graphics that are used, as well as the type of material that you're purchasing. And that, if you ever have questions about what would fall under that, because sometimes it can be a little bit confusing, please just give us a call and we can kind of talk through some other options with you. But essentially, our outreach and our education, the goals in that is trying to increase participation in recycling or food waste prevention, in order to help decrease contamination. And so, there in our office is a big focus on reducing food waste. And if we can't do that, then increasing composting. So we can do it for both recycling, food waste prevention, as well as composting with our office. And these are some of the campaigns that we have that we would love the outreach to kind of redirect people to. So the first is our Take Charge, Be Battery Smart program. That's all about trying to get people on board for battery safety and proper disposal of those batteries so that you don't have to deal with them setting your MRF on fire or any bins or trucks on fire. As Richard said, I do the Smart Business recycling. That could also be working with businesses in the area to get their sending out information on recycling, and getting them in touch with me. As we said, Savannah's our new Don't Waste Food South Carolina coordinator. That campaign, as it says in its name, is all about food waste prevention and trying to get people on board for reducing the amount of food waste that's put in the landfill. And then we have our Recycle Right SC campaign. That's all about, as it says, getting people to put the correct items in their recycling bin so that they are recycling right throughout the state. And then we also have our composting. We don't have anyone that's specifically responsible for that program in our office. We all just kind of like touch that. So if you have any questions or brainstorming with that, we can definitely do that. And then our newest thing is our Recycle Here SC mobile app. So on our website, we have where to recycle, and we have a list of all the locations for recycling throughout the state, but we wanted to get that into people's hands a little more easily. So we have developed this app, and so this is something that we would love to see the counties and cities promote if possible, as it's a statewide app that is free. So some other things that you all can do in terms of spending your outreach money, we're going to go through a few examples. So one is billboards. Again, Greg has multiple designs for this, whether it's for used oil or more for recycling or food waste prevention. We also have flyers that you can hand out, whether that is more for you're trying to advertise a hazardous household waste collection event, which we can also, just quick plug, we can put those on our Recycle Here SC app and do kind of like push notifications to residents. But we also have flyers that are going to be more educational that you could put up around town or in offices or in schools. We also have magnets, magnets can be purchased. And so here are a few examples of some that some different groups have done. Again, Greg can help you with designing those. Calendars are another thing. I think with Kershaw County's one to do calendars each year, and I think they kind of list the different locations where recycling can be collected throughout the state. And then if you really want to be flashy around town, you can get car and roll-off container wraps. So I know there are some recycling trucks that have this or have banners kind of along the sides of them. So again, Greg can help with creating those items. And then there are banners and posters that we have available. I know a lot of you all are probably already familiar with the Recycle Guys. So, it's a punny way of getting people engaged in recycling. So we do have ones that are more straightforward, like the one on the right, where it's a step, the loop of recycling and kind of more of that educational side. And then there are ones that are a little more punny that have the Recycling Guys. And then we do have a lot of educational pamphlets. So that could include our coloring books, which if you're ever interested in seeing what coloring books we have available, I can send you a link to for you to look through our library. Excuse me, as well as if you are needing to have brochures or kind of like trifolds that you send out, trifold pamphlets that you send out to your residents saying these are things that you should recycle or should not, we can create that as well. So some other educational examples include radio announcements, informational notepads, recycling tote bags, posters, coloring books, video announcements, and recycling apps. We do want to specify that we get a lot of requests for different swag items, I guess you could say. So, it could be uh, like frisbees or sunglasses or water bottles. We try to hold off on doing those because first off, as an agency, we have also held off on getting a lot of promotional items that could potentially end up in the trash. And so to follow SCDES's model, as well as to make it fit with our office goals of not putting more and more things into the landfill, those are things that we see as unfortunately ending up in the landfill more quickly than maybe some of these other items that we've listed out. So if you ever do have a question of like you want some swag, please feel free to give us a call and just say like, is this something that you all would approve? And we can kind of talk through if that's an option or not. So with that said, I'm going to pass it to Richard to talk about our Category 2 Hub and Spokes program. So Richard, if you want to unmute yourself, I'll let you speak through this one.
Thank you, Grace Ann. Can you hear me, everybody? Good?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I want to make sure. There's always a glitch on these type of things, it seems. Anyway, the hub and spoke system, I want to try to explain that again. We've been very transparent and telling everyone for more than a year or so about what we were trying to do. It's the reality is we have limited funding, and we're trying to secure funding and find ways to find more funding. So we went for the Swiffer grant and didn't quite get it. We now will have another opportunity, it seems, depending on how all the chaos plays out in Washington. But it's about taking what funding we have and making it as efficient as possible. That means we're looking at which regional partnerships, regional efforts that would include, obviously, or would be centered around hub and spoke. The Solid Waste Policy Management Act encourages regional developments, in other words, working together. We believe the hub and spoke is a way to go, and with a focus on, we'll discuss any commodity, but our first focus is on organics recovery and or preventing food waste from going to landfill. Food waste is the number one item that goes to the landfill. To get our rate up, recycling rate up, if we can reduce disposal and get the food waste turned into compost, build an infrastructure, etc. Everybody wins. What's good for the economy. We can make valuable product, nutrient-rich product right here, and so on and so forth. So the hub and spoke is we're looking for areas, asking each of you to consider being a hub or spoke. It could be for, again, whatever commodity. I would use an example. Greenville and Lexington have talked about being hubs, and they would serve as the hubs of whatever commodity you're working with them. We would provide funding for the spokes to collect that material, store it, and get it, at least for the first year, get it to the hub. We do believe the efficiencies of a hub will have more material and cleaner material. In other words, less contamination. Everybody wins. But it also gives some of the smaller counties an opportunity to do things they may not have been able to do. This doesn't mean you have to jump on and do a bunch of commodities at once. We do have $600,000 allocated for this, as Grace Ann mentioned. We know it's going to take several years, if not longer, to develop a statewide infrastructure of a hub and spoke. Again, the bottom line is we're looking for a hub, a larger county that can take things on and afford to do some things. We'll provide support funding and anything else we can do to make it work. The spokes would be whatever commodity you want to collect, or getting material to market to be composted, whatever. That's what the funding is for. We're open to all ideas. We've got sign off on this, and we've talked to a lot of different folks internally at the legislature, et cetera. There are New Mexico. I was talking with Grace Ann yesterday. There are examples where this works, and there can be all kinds of hub and spokes. But again, it's basically working together to select a commodity or commodities, and either you get it to the hub, and the hub has the composting facility or whatever else is needed to get the material to market. New Mexico does quite a bit of this. There's been programs in Iowa and Nebraska. And we can provide some actual examples. We'll be doing basically a template of or a guidebook or fact sheet, whatever we end up doing or calling it, for you to follow. But and again, a lot of this is already going on with just partnerships or relationships based on you help me do that, and I'll help and I can help you do that. We do think, I'm reinforcing this, we do think it will work. We do think we need to be patient. We have funding to get it going. And I hope to maintain funding. Stephanie may hit me on this side of the head later, but if we provide funding for 1 year and you still have issues and still have a lot of things for the second and third year, we're open to that. We want them to be successful. We'll probably be able to, if we get 2 or 3 going this year, that would be great. But we are committed to this for the next few years to make this work. But we need your help to make it work. And I'll be glad to answer any questions. I'm sure I've missed something, but anything at all that you'd like to ask, we're here.
Thank you, Richard. And just to clarify too, in terms of what's covered under the hub and spoke grant. So it could include construction, renovation, expansion of facilities, getting equipment and supplies for handling the material that you would be either transporting somewhere or collecting. We could also use that for covering education and outreach material, and then also first year of contractor cost. So this, and just to clarify, if we cover the first year of contractor cost, it would be only for new programs and not for existing ones. So again, we just don't want people to become reliant on a grant that we may not be able to provide the next year. So yeah, that's kind of the general gist of that program.
Grace Ann, I think it's important
yes,
forgive me, it's important to mention that a regional hub and spoke can also be like a county. It could be a county that works out a hub and spoke system with its municipalities or towns or whatever. So it doesn't have to be multiple counties. It doesn't have to be any specific number, but you can work internally in your own county to make this work. I did want to mention that. Forgive me for interrupting.
Oh no, thank you so much for putting that point in there, Richard. So and that kind of leads us to if anybody has any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat or again raise your hand and we can try to discuss those. And I know that was a lot of information or kind of new information with the hub and spoke. And so if you need to just kind of like ponder it and let it sink in or discuss it with your coworkers, you again, as Richard was saying, you're always welcome to give us a call, and we would love to try to talk through your ideas. So I'm not seeing anybody start typing in the chat or raising their hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our next group. Oh, okay. Ava said, do you have some examples of what spoke funding could be used for?
As I mentioned, the collection storage of material and the transportation or them getting it to the hub. Those are you may have to buy roll-off containers, say I'm just throwing out glass or maybe organics, whatever you'd want to do as far as, again, the collection of the material, if you have to bring someone else in to collect it, or if you're going to go through drop-off sites, you need more containers. The moving it to the hub on the transportation end, that would include some staffing if you need another person. We're open to all that. Well, whatever you would need, I guess within reason, that we could that would make sense for you to for a spoke to make this work. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Richard. Ava, if you have any more questions on that, feel free to put in that. Okay, she said yes, thanks, in all caps.
Hey, Ava.
And then Gloria asked, are we able to get a copy of the presentation to refer back to during the year? And yes, we will be sending out this presentation both in PDF as well as recording form. So just keep a lookout for that over the next few weeks. Erica, let's see, you asked, do the hub spokes cover hazardous food waste projects? Is that right, Erica?
For hazardous waste?
Yes, yeah. Hazardous and maybe like food waste projects.
It's going to be traditional recyclables right now because we're grateful and you guys are doing a wonderful job and we do work for you. But our focus is on traditional recyclables, again, with a priority on food waste. I want to reinforce over and over again, because I get called, asked, why is the recycling rate 20% or 21%, whatever? And there's a lot of reasons, but it's not the program quality. A lot of reasons, there's a lot of underreporting, et cetera. My point being, we're going to focus on traditional recyclables, food waste being the number one item going to the landfill. If we can keep food waste out of the landfill, at least start that initiative and get it going, that would be a huge step forward to maintaining landfill life expectancy by keeping the food waste out. Would lead to economic development, maybe some economic development, jobs, businesses relocating. We've already been talking with one company out of Florida that's looking at moving here on the organics recovery end, and they don't want any money. They just want to see if they're going to be able to get the material delivered, available where they can pick it up and you compost these organics. So no, bottom line is traditional recyclables right now, and with a focus on food waste. And if we can't prevent it or donate it, the last full measure here is to keep it out of the landfill, and that's would be a huge step forward. Grace Ann.
Thank you, Richard. Okay, it looks like we don't have any more questions right now, but again, please feel free to keep putting them in the chat. I just wanted to go over, since Caitlin is no longer on our team, I still want to do a quick plug for our school grants programs. So this can, though this may not apply directly to you as a county, I know a lot of your counties and cities have schools in them. And so, you may have groups that are reaching out that are trying to implement recycling or food waste prevention or composting. And this is one way that you could try to support them or get some resources available for them. So we have two types of grants for school grants. One one is the K through 12 school grant, which deals with public, private, and charter schools. As individual schools can apply or a whole district can apply. The maximum award for each school is $1,500, and the funding can go towards recycling and composting supplies, shared tables, which there's an example of that on the bottom right, where you have like a refrigerator for your unopened containers of like pre-packaged containers of milk or yogurt or fruit that would have potentially been thrown out but can now be used for those who are a little bit hungry. Also, the funding can go towards lesson plan support for material that's related to recycling, composting, and waste reduction. And we can also help with covering some field trips that are related to those. So the fiscal year 2026 application period will be beginning in August of 2025. If you know of any schools that would be interested, they can reach out to our swgrants@des.sc.gov email address and ask for an application so we can send it their way. And then we also have our colleges and universities. So this applies to both public and private schools. The maximum award that can be provided is $10,000 and 250, or excuse me, 2,500 of that amount can be used for professional development. So the material or the funding can go towards campus recycling programs or waste reduction efforts. And this application for fiscal year 26 is going to be available starting next month in March. So again, if you know of any any colleges or universities in your area that would benefit, please send them our way, again, to the SW Grants email address. And then for those of you who are not as aware, we do have a partnership where we have Take Action SC. And with this program, we have Action for Cleaner Tomorrow curriculum that has been created both with our office as well as with Take Action SC. This is a group of teachers who will go out and do training for teachers who are both in the classroom, but also they provide teachers in the classroom with breaks by coming in and providing lessons that are more sustainable or sustainability focused. So a lot of it deals with solid waste, recycling, and composting. So this is for K through 12 students as well. So it is free of charge. And again, it can provide some great relief to teachers. So that was just a quick plug, but I want to send it back over to Woody to talk about our waste tire grants. And then we'll end it with Stephanie kind of telling us about some of the forms that you'll need to use when dealing with the grants. So Woody, I'll give you control.
Okay,
again,
yeah, let's just try this one more time. Do a little click here and then, so
Yeah,
let's try
can you
forward
do
and
it with
back.
your mouse? Can you click with your
Let's
mouse and
see.
see if it'll work?
Gee, the mouse is not working
Oh,
for
there we
me.
go. Okay, I think whatever
Did
you
that?
just did, yeah, that moved it forward. So if you want to go back, I think you're going
Okay.
forward. Here, wait, I'll
Yeah,
take
I'm
us
going
back.
forward.
There we
Let's
go.
go. Okay. Oh, one more time. Waste tire grants.
There you go.
Okay. So yeah, some of the waste tire grants, I'm the I guess I'm the first line for really all things waste tires. I do manage the waste tire grants, but and along with that, the grants for getting illegal tire piles cleaned up. So let's we'll talk a little bit about the waste tire grant program and what's now. Wait a minute, I just pushed this button. Did you do that or did I do that?
I did it. I can take control still.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if there's a delay here or what's going on, but all right. So with the waste tire management program, so all counties are required to manage the waste tires generated in their county. And we talked about the sources for tire management funding and the $2 fee that's on new replacement tires. The fees for your tire management also come from tipping fees that the county may charge for the undocumented tires. And then if those fees, the $2, the disbursements from DOR and the tipping fees aren't enough to cover the cost for management of your waste tires, then you can apply for these waste tire grants from DES to to help complete the cost for those services. Let's get to the next slide, please. All right, so waste tire management, I'll just go through a few things here. Your county policy. So we encourage all the counties to have a waste tire management policy and to make that available to your citizens either through the website. So your policy really applies not only to the residents of the county, but also to the businesses like the new tire retailers or your used tire retailers. And so making those policies available, we see as a big help. You can list in your policy where you accept tires and when tires are accepted. One of the issues we've had a lot of times, there's some documentation that's involved when the new tire retailers bring a load of tires to the site. And to be able to have enough time to deal with those, it's best to have a particular time frame where your retailers know when they can bring the tires in, so that your attendants have time to to go through the documentation and make sure everything's correct. So yeah, and then you can also list what fees the county charges for undocumented tires. And another thing that we've seen here recently is some counties have decided not to accept retailer tires. In the Solid Waste Act, it basically says that the counties have to provide a location to collect them, but it doesn't necessarily say that you have to accept tires from retailers. So if that's your position, you certainly want to make that available, that information available to your retailers. Because when the retailers, when they sell a new tire and they collect that $2 fee, then they have the option at that point whether they want to recycle the tires themselves or if they want to take it to the county. So if they're going to take the tires to the county, then they're going to have to remit basically that whole $1.94 of the $2 to the Department of Revenue. And if your county's in a position where you don't accept retailer tires and the retailer is expecting to be able to take the tires to you, and then they get to the gate and they get turned around, then they have to go back and apply for a refund from the Department of Revenue. So that's why it's important to have those communications and have that information available to the retailers that are within your county. All right, let's go one more. Okay. So waste tire grant funds can only be used for contractor costs associated with waste tire recycling and hauling, and you have to use the haulers that are registered with the Department of Environmental Services, and of course the registered haulers have to use approved recyclers. So you're ultimately, I guess, responsible for who's picking up your tires and where those tires go. So pay particular attention to your manifests and make sure that the haulers that you're dealing with are registered with our department. Let's get to the next slide. So in terms of funding the waste tire grant, so we've been in a bit of a bind here since really FY23. The cost of recycling tires continues to go up, but the fees really related to recycling of waste tires has remained the same since 1991. So it's it's causing a strain on the amount of money that we have to offer in the waste tire grants. In FY23, we decided to eliminate those funds that were previously available for professional development and public education, and went strictly to the grants being able to fund only contractor costs. And then in FY24, in order to try to help all the counties that were requesting that assistance, we basically had to reduce the amount that all the counties requested by 30%. And that happened again in FY for this current grant cycle in FY25, where we had to make a 30% reduction across the board. So, in other words, in South Carolina counties requested 3.98 million in FY25, and we were able to award only 2.3 million. All right, and here's an example of a partnership we have with Palmetto Pride. Palmetto Pride is putting some of these billboards in various places around the state. It's been an excellent program in terms of rooting out some of these illegal tire piles and finding them, getting them reported. No one wants to deal with the mosquitoes and issues that tires cause when they're in places they're not supposed to be. So this has been an excellent program for us. Citizens will call this number, I think goes directly to Palmetto Pride. And then in times that Palmetto Pride is able to get information out to the local codes enforcement officers to get some of these tire piles investigated. Sometimes they come back to me, but like I say, it's a great program for finding the illegal tire piles. And so it may be a situation where we find out one of these piles that we need to get cleaned up, and we may contact the county directly and say, hey, we've got this situation, and we want to work together to get the tire piles cleaned up. A lot, we'll try to use the funds that from the grants to make that happen. But with an illegal tire pile, it's not really something you can plan for, right? So most of your tire grants are based on your historical costs for collection of waste tires. So when you have a situation like this that arises, it may be necessary for us to do some type of modification or an increase to the waste tire grant in order to get some tire piles cleaned up. So I guess that's what, with me being the frontline person for the waste tire grants, it's easier for me to also work with the counties on getting some of these tire piles cleaned up, because I'm kind of the keeper of the purse strings, so to speak. All right, let's get to the next slide. So here's a little overview of from the FY24 grant. Some of the stockpile investigations and remediations, generally when you're talking about cleaning up stockpile tires, it's a little more expensive than it is to just take the tires, from your county collection sites to get them processed. So it's averaging about, $375 a ton to process these tires from illegal stockpiles. And that's just for the processing costs. There may be additional costs for for the later labor and trailer dock fees and some of these things that the processors charge for picking up the tires. And then so in FY24 we had about 30 stockpile investigations that we were involved with. 10 of those got resolved. Well, I'd say probably at this point more than 10 have been resolved, but of the 20 unresolved sites, we estimated it was going to cost about $202,000 in projected costs to get those cleaned up. As I mentioned, the partnership with Palmetto Pride. Sometimes Palmetto Pride will kick in some funds to help clean up illegal tire piles. In FY24, we increased, we provided about $64,400 in increased grant funds, I guess you'd say, to get those tire piles cleaned up. And as an agency, we maintain a reserve of about $2 million to address illegal tire pile cleanups, not only from the sites, but also if we were to have an issue with say a large tire processor, then we have those funds available to help clean up those sites. All right, so let's continue forward. So here's a bit of news for you. As we talked about, the Solid Waste Act went into effect in 1991, and the $2 fee was established at that time. And so we've put some work groups together, a work group that's been looking at waste tire management in South Carolina and some of the needs for the state. It's been a large group of really everyone: processors, tire manufacturers, retailers, environmental groups, just a number of folks who've been involved with some of these work groups. And I think it was in 2023, I believe, is when the first bill was introduced. It didn't really go very far. And then so here recently, Senate Bill 171 was introduced in January 14th. And it has a lot of the recommendations from the work group in this proposed legislation. I've a few bullet points here of what's included, and it's not all. There's really a lot that's been put into this proposed legislation. But some of the points there, they want to increase the cap. So you have $150 per ton cap currently for that you can charge for undocumented tires. They want to increase that to $400 per ton that the counties can charge for undocumented tires. Another aspect of this proposed legislation, there's a requirement for waste tire haulers to include a sticker on I don't know if on the trucks or the trailers that are for hauling tires. And then that way, if your county codes enforcement folks see a trailer load of tires going down the road, they can, look for that sticker to see if that sticker's on the trailer indicating that it is, a certified waste tire hauler. And then if they don't have the sticker, then it may be somebody they want to stop and talk to them about, where the tires come from and where the tires are going. So we see that as a beneficial aspect of the legislation. It's a program that actually I think Greenville County is currently has currently proposed for their waste tire haulers in their county, and it's kind of made its way to this proposed legislation for the state. That's something that I guess our compliance folks would issue the sticker and be involved with. So let's see here. Another part, the $2 recycling fee. So the $2 recycling fee is currently only assessed on new replacement tires. And so what's been proposed is to also include the fee for tires that come on new vehicles and assess a fee for used tire sales. So we'll see how successful they are with getting that, but that would certainly increase the amount of fees that we have available for management of waste tires in South Carolina. The proposed, got a few more here. There we go. There's also language in the bill I mentioned about counties not having to accept retailer tires, and so the bill has some language that addresses that, and it asks for the counties that want to go that route to make that declaration in their local ordinance, in an ordinance form. And if you do that, then if you have, let's say, so you put it in your ordinance that you're not accepting retailer tires, then if a retailer, shows up at your gate and's got a load of tires, then at that point you will be able to charge an additional fee, because as the law says, you're not allowed to charge a fee for which on tires for which a fee has already been paid. So in this case, if you have it in your ordinance that that you don't accept retailer tires and those tires show up at your gate, then you'll have the ability to charge them if you want to accept those tires. Then it also directs the Department of Environmental Services and the South Carolina Department of Commerce to create and implement a plan to improve the markets for waste tire products statewide. So this last point here on the this is a link to the scstatehouse.gov website where you can follow and track the legislation as it moves through the legislature. Like I say, it was introduced in January. It went to the Labor, Commerce, and Industry Committee. It was found favorable in committee, and so now it's come back to the Senate and is awaiting, I guess, a second reading on the Senate floor. So that's where we are with that. And I would say, if you have the opportunity, just go to the that link there. But that's to scstatehouse.gov, and you can just search for S171, and you should be able to find all the latest on that proposed legislation. All right, let's move on. So, management of legally dumped or stockpiled waste tires. Each county is required by the Act to participate in waste tire cleanup enforcement efforts. Counties should engage their local code enforcement authorities when they identify illegally dumped or stockpiled waste tires, or contact the local DES office. We generally don't get involved in tire piles of less than 120 tires. But if it's just a matter of making a phone call or something, we'll help as best we can to resolve some of these issues. All right, so back to the actual grants and an application portion of it. So the grant amounts, the amount that you can apply for is based really on your historical tons collected, historically what you receive in DOR fees and whatever tipping fees that you charge, and then also the contract costs that you are currently paying for tire processing. Now, if you're going to apply for the grant, there's also quarterly reporting that's required for all grantees. And your funds for your waste tire management are obtained through reimbursement requests. So when you submit those reimbursement forms, and we'll go through some of these forms in a minute, but you include copies of your invoices from the waste tire haulers or processors. And then also with the applications, new for this year is that we're going to prioritize grants to the counties that charge the maximum tipping fee for undocumented tires. So we have some counties that don't charge any fees for undocumented tires, and that's certainly their prerogative. Where the county can make that decision if they want to, but it's really not fair to all the other counties in the state that are charging fees. But like I say, we're all operating from the same little pot of money. So if you got some counties that aren't charging the fees, it's not really fair to the other counties that do. It takes away from the fees that are available to them. All right, let's go to the next slide. So here's an example in your application. There's a tire fee worksheet. Is this the yeah. So this was one from the FY25 application. The only difference really is that where it says FY23, that'll change. Each one will change, but you should have that data from your FY24 collections available. Then what you anticipate for FY25 to get that, your FY25 is from July 1st through June 30th. So you're only going to have at this point 6 months of costs available to you. So you just take that amount that you've the cost for the first 6 months and double that, and that should give you your anticipated cost for FY25, and then we'll assume that those costs remain the same for FY26. So you can now, if you know for a fact that your contractor costs are going to increase if you have a new vendor or someone else that for whatever reason the costs have gone up, then show that in your application. Because what I'll do is I'll take these fee worksheets from across the state from all the grantees, and we'll total up what we believe will be the eligible amount for the grants, and then that's the number we'll roll with. So that's why it's important to make sure you have your quarterly reports turned in and accurate, and then because we'll use that data in figuring out what you're available for in FY26. So let's go. I guess that's pretty much all that I have on the waste tire grants. We like I say, and we'll talk about some of the forms here in a minute. All right.
We have just a few slides that we.
Gracie, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. My computer is not wanting to cooperate. So I know that we're right at time, but we do have some other slides that people would probably benefit from going over. However, if you need to jump off the call, again, I will have this available for you to have as a video. But with that said, I want to give the floor over to Steph to have her kind of go through some reminders about tips for kind of writing a strong grant. So Steph, feel free to go ahead.
Okay, I think I've got control again, but help me with this clicker. And just, we had a question come in actually before this meeting, just the process of this. I'm going to go over it really quickly. Once the applications come in by April 4th, we have staff here that reviews the applications for Grace Ann's hub and spoke portion. There will actually be a grant panel because that's a competitive grant. Once they are reviewed, we make recommendations. The tires go to the Waste Tire Committee, and then all of the grants go to the State Solid Waste Advisory Council, and they are the ones that actually approve or deny the grants. So just to let y'all know how that's done here in-house. So tips for writing a strong grant. Follow the structure of the grant questions. Answer all the questions fully. I cannot tell you how many times we get applications and the questions aren't answered. Give us a detailed budget that you're requesting with the total. Do your own research on your vendors and supply and cost. We don't necessarily need to see those with your application, but at least you'll have that information when you know what you're asking for. And give us effective and efficient details. Don't make us search, because we usually have about 150 applications we're going through at one time, and that's just on counties and cities. We get that many from schools and colleges also. Okay, this was Woody's slide, but I'll go ahead and do it. Tips for the solid waste. You want me to do it, Woody?
I can go through here.
Okay.
So, the SW Grants email that you use to communicate with us, we got some things that make it easier, for us to operate as a team. So when your subject line should state what's actually in the email. So let's say you're submitting quarterly reports for for your solid waste grant and your waste oil grant. Then just put that in your subject line title so we know what to expect. Here's an example that I created. So your subject line here, you see FY25 waste oil grant, solid waste grant, and waste tire grant Q2 reports. So those are some abbreviations there to make things quick and simple for you. And then one of the issues that we have a lot of times, well, sometimes we'll get a subject, it just be some numbers or in the subject line, or same way with the file names. So we really want you to get away from putting, it's okay to submit multiple files in an email, but we don't want to have multiple, say, documents in one single file. Because like I say, these files get saved to different areas. So if you will list out each file separately with a name that's nice and easy to follow, like here, Calhoun County FY25 waste oil grant Q2. So we know exactly what is in that file. And then that way at a glance, I can tell which ones I need to work with, and Stephanie or Grace Ann can figure out, which ones they'll work with, and just makes the whole process a lot smoother. And you don't have to, you don't have to include the flat. Actually, this is just an example. It's not really an email from Calhoun County that says Woody is brilliant, does such a good job, and should get a raise, an extra week of vacation, and some coconut pie. So she didn't really see that, but those are certainly things that I agree with. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Move along here. Forms overview. Who's going to talk about the forms?
So
I will.
Okay.
So once you've sent in your application and the grants are awarded, we send your grant agreements out. They will come from the SWA grants email address, and you get those grant agreements signed by your authorized representative and sent back in. We will send you a start letter similar to the one you see on your screen that gives you your start date, which is the date of the last signature on your grant. And then we'll send all of the forms that go with your grant. So one of the forms is the promotional educational material approval form. Please use one form per grant, even if you're combining grants. You'll need to do those separately because they do go to different people for approvals. Include quotes, how the item will be used, details for graphics. You'll need the funded by the SCDES logo. If you're not sure what you want to do, please check on our website. I believe our website has Greg's catalog on there. And if you don't have that, we certainly can get it to you. But those of you who worked with Greg know that he is very talented and can create anything that you want, but he also has a lot of stock and can just fix it for your county or city if that's what you want to do. The deadline for this form and for request for public ed approval is December 1st. And the reason we have that deadline set is so that gives Greg time to get what you need designed, and then gives you time to get it ordered or printed. The professional development approval form, this is the form that you'll need to use if you're requesting to spend money on travel. So we do give $750 in the oil grant and the tire grant for travel related to recycling conferences. And we'll pay for registration, lodging at the GSA rate, which is a federal rate that is set for each city or state. Transportation, and that would be mileage at the allowed state rates, and meals at in-state or out-of-state approved South Carolina rates. And you'll see on this form that we've got it filled out showing who's traveling, the dates, how much you're requesting, and what the event is you're going to. If it's something like CRA, we all know what that is, so you don't need to send information as a backup. But if it's something that's not a common travel trip, please send us an agenda, a brochure, or a website link so we can look at what you're wanting to go to, and we can make sure that there's a recycling component to that conference. And you can combine your used oil and solid waste funds if you need to pay for a conference. Reimbursement form. And we sent out a new form, I think about a month ago. Our finance office had us add the vendor number in that top right corner. So if you're not using the newest form, please do so. And if you don't have it, let me know, and I'll make sure that you get it. So we do ask that you fill this form out pretty much how it looks. That in the middle section there, where it has the budget categories and then the grant amounts. A lot of times people will just say if they're requesting public ed, they'll only put that grant amount for public ed. Those get kicked back to us from finance. In the past, we used to just fill them out, but we have been recently sending them back to you all. That entire column needs to be filled out for whatever your budget is, and that comes straight out of your grant agreement. And then the other columns showing any reimbursements that you've already had, this reimbursement request, and then you should be able to calculate the balance. The old forms, we had it trying to calculate for you, and it didn't work for some people's computers. So we have taken that out, and you will have to calculate that number yourself. And then the next set of boxes where you list the invoices that you are requesting reimbursement for, and you will need to attach copies of those invoices. And then at the bottom for the address, that is not necessarily your physical location. It is where your checks go to. So most likely your finance office's location, and that is the address that is set up in our state vendor registry that all state government uses to make payments from. And we cannot make a payment unless it's to the correct address. So sometimes we'll have to send those back to you if the address isn't correct. And if you're not sure what your address is, again, let me know and I can pull up your vendor information. Final reimbursements are due 45 days after the close of the grant. So if your grant ends on June 30th, they are due August 15th.
And that's going to also add, Stephanie, for the list of invoices there, we realize that sometimes you may have more than, I don't know how many spaces, but you can attach an additional sheet to list the invoices that you have. Just make sure that on that additional sheet that it has all the information that we ask for on the form, like the invoice number and date and who the vendor is, the amounts. So all that information should also be found on the attachment sheet if you have more than, say, 8 or how many spaces, more than that number of invoices to deal with.
We also have a minority business form. This is a state agency requirement. And if you use a minority-owned business for any of your purchases with our grant funds, please just complete this form and send it back into us, and we will get it to the appropriate party who collects those for our agency. Roseanne, give it back to you.
And Steph, can you remind everybody when quarterly reports are due?
Yes, quarterly reports are due on the 15th of the month after the quarter ends. So the quarter ends September 30th, due October 15th. Quarter ending December 30th is due January 15th. Quarter ending March 30th is due April 15th. And then the last quarter, unless you have an extension, it ends June 30th. And then quarterly reports are due July 15th.
Thank you, Steph. So we're going to quickly go over each of the quarterly reports. So they're a little bit different between each of the grants. For the solid waste one, we do typically, and as Steph was just kind of reminding everyone of the dates, we do send reminder emails for when those are due. And please try to get them in by that 15th date of the next month. Essentially, our quarterly reports are trying to capture activity that happened in that past quarter. So in here, we like to have it listed out as your accomplishments, any equipment that you ended up kind of procuring, educational material that you also purchased as well. In this quarterly report, it's also a time to identify different issues that you're having, and that way we can kind of keep track of, how we may need to assist you as a county. There is a timetable, so you can kind of say, like, these are the different things that we plan to do during this quarter, or the upcoming quarters. So if you're planning to, like, say you have been funded for a roll-off container, you can say, well, in quarter 3, that's when we plan to purchase it. We also ask that you provide any tonnage that you have been able to collect using grant funding. And so that's on that second page in the top with question 5. And then if there's any type of technical guidance that you're needing, you can also list it here. And we do check to see what you all have included. So this is another way in which you can communicate. But we hope that you also, in the time of need, reach out to us directly. So I will go ahead and pass it along to Woody for him to talk about his used oil form, which is somewhat similar to mine.
Yeah, with the used oil quarterly report, the main thing I want to point out too is the unit. Just please provide the units of measure. So if you're dealing with gallons of waste oil or tons of waste oil, whatever unit, ever how that's reported to you, just make sure you have the units in your form. So same way with the waste oil filters. If you're reporting pounds of waste oil filters, then you want to get that on the form so we'll know exactly what quantity we're talking about. And then for the waste tire quarterly reports, there again, you want to make sure you fill out all the blanks, and any needs or situations that arise if you're having trouble with your vendor that's picking up your used tires, just make note of that in your quarterly report. Okay.
All right. Well, we now will kind of open the floor for any questions that you all have. Again, we know that it's a little bit after time, so thank y'all for being so patient and for staying with us through the end. If you need to get in contact with any of us directly, these are all of the email addresses that we have. So again, that swgrants@des.sc.gov, that's where we would like most of the questions that are related to grants to go, just so we have a track record. And as I think Woody mentioned earlier, we all have access to that. So if one of us is out of office or has something else going on, we can stay on top of those emails. But if you have something that is a different question than just grants, you're welcome to reach out to each of us individually as well. But now is the time for questions. And again, after we're done with questions, for those who are interested in kind of brainstorming a little bit more about Hub and Spokes, or the Hub and Spoke program, we would love for you to stay on, as we'll allot some more time for that. So if you have a question, again, feel free to raise your hand and I'll unmute you, or put it in the chat. And again, we really appreciate you all joining us today. We know that it took a chunk out of your time, and so we just want to, provide these resources to make it as easy as possible for y'all to go through the application. But it's looking like we don't have any questions. Again, in the next few days, I will try to get this video out to everybody, and feel free to share it with your office staff. But with that said, I'm not seeing any questions. If you would like to stay on and have any further discussion about Hub and Spokes, this would now be the time to do that. Everybody else, you are welcome to head on out. But thank y'all for your time. Yes, and I will unmute everybody so that that you can share among yourselves. So thank you, Marcia. Just a sec. Okay, Marcia. So I think if you want to try it out and open the floor, you are welcome to. Everything should be or everybody should be able to unmute themselves. And I've also, if you want to show your face, I've also given you the chance to put your cameras on if you'd like. And so again, this is just a time we wanted to give people the chance, if they are interested in the hub and spokes, to ask any specific questions, or if you have an idea, to kind of throw it around with our staff, as well as maybe, make connections with other people who, and I'll stop sharing my screen, make connections with other people who are kind of in the same boat of, they are interested in this idea, but they're just trying to figure out what would work best for their area. So I know a few folks did say that they are definitely interested in doing this, and then there were a few that were kind of a maybe. So are there any specific questions or specific concerns that you all have, or areas that you're just a little bit unclear that you would like our team to try to talk through? Or if you have an idea that you'd like to run by and just kind of like brainstorm off of each other, that would be a good time to do that as well. I may put Ava Baker on the hot seat, because I know that we in the past have talked about some ideas. And Ava is actually working right now with a contractor. Oh, you don't have a mic. Okay. Well, maybe not. But I'll give kind of a high level introduction to Ava's working with a contractor right now to try to figure out if a hub and spoke is feasible in her area. So Ava, in the chat, feel free to put anything in there that I misspeak. But Ava was awarded the $100,000 grant last year for creativity and waste management. She's with Clarendon County. Ava reached out before she, I guess, even applied. She reached out to some of the surrounding counties to see, would people be on board in the first place um, to try to do a hub and spoke program. Her area is a lot more rural, and sometimes the funding that's available is not there. And so for her, she's using that $100,000 to work with a contracting group to do a feasibility study in the first place. And I wish that she had the mic so that she could kind of speak up a little bit more about it. But yeah, maybe she can put a little bit more information in the chat. But I guess, let's see, Richard, I know that you had spoken with a couple of counties who have voiced an interest. Can you share a little bit more about what what their initial ideas were?
Well, yeah, Greenville pops to mind, and I've talked to Lexington as well. I mean, we had about a year ago, and we were applying for the Swiffer grant. We had 4 or 5 counties, actually. I have to look at my notes, that were more than willing to be a hub. Horry County, um, Richland, excuse me, Lexington, and Greenville. But we didn't get too far in the sense that, I mean, we did talk about preventing, you know, recovery of food waste generally, and also preventing the landfill disposal. But like Greenville was equipment. I think Ed down in Horry County was going to be, the funding would be for equipment so they expand services. Lexington they were looking at a variety of things, including equipment and such as containers. But we were limited on what we could do, because we could all talk about what we wanted to do, but we were applying for a grant and didn't have had not been awarded any funding, and so forth. My point, Grace Ann, is that this all needs to be worked out and see how much funding we have. We do know for certain we have the 600,000, but most of it would be for equipment, including containers and some processing equipment, et cetera, some storage, and then for the spokes in particular, while the hubs will be looking more at equipment, the spokes will be looking at containers, storage, and collection, and getting it to the hub. But I botched around there, but that's really what's going on. There's a lot of loose ends right now. We're hoping we get the $5 million that we asked for from the legislature for that grant, and at that point, we'll have a lot more to work with about what can be done and where it can be done to start this hub and spoke infrastructure. I hope that helps.
Richard,
Yeah.
we are expanding starting next month the collection of food waste at the residential waste and recycling centers through Smart Recycle.
Yes.
And I think it's not outrageously expensive. I think we're rolling it out at 3 centers this first year, and I think it's going to be about $2,000 annually for collection at those 3 centers, and they provide 90-gallon carts. And when they come, they wash the carts, so you're always getting a fresh bin, so you don't have residual, food waste in the bins. And we have some sense, because we were doing that with Atlas, how well that works. But the contamination seems to be very low, because the citizens doing this are really sort of committed to the program.
Into it.
And we think that this will be the way that we can roll out to all of our centers. And what I'm thinking is hub and spoke, if we can get together with the counties around us to do collection at their facilities, that would really, that would be like the baby step, I think.
Right. Yeah. Yep. That's great. Boy, you guys are top notch. You always come up with the ideas and figure a way to implement them. Yeah, that's great, Marcia. Can't wait to talk to people about it and promote it for you on our end and show that it can work, because you can lead by example big time. That's great news.
It would just take one of us really to have. I have a guy that goes around to all of the recycle box, the locations, and picks up recyclables. And he could very easily expand that to grabbing food waste on the slow days. He has 3 days that he has the afternoon is slower. So, but we're kind of struggling with what we envision that collection container would look like. And I guess it just depends on volumes. Small compactor compatible, truck would be probably ideal, because you could keep it in there multiple days without worrying about vectors.
Right.
So I don't know what everybody else is thinking about what that collection would look like.
You said they will provide a container, so the bins at your 3 sites?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They provide the containers and they clean them. So
that's,
you don't have ongoing container. Smart Recycle does.
That's great. Yeah, we need to talk more, but that's great. That's exactly the type of program that we need someone to do it to show that can be done. I know Ed's all over it too. He wants to do it. And if we can figure it out with Lexington had changed its contract. I'm not sure if Laura Ann's on or not, but I believe they had ended the contract with their vendor, and we're, I believe, putting out another contract. I'm trying to remember on what they were trying to do with food waste. So that may be another county that can jump in and gets things going. And there's so many targets from Lexington County with Richland and City of Columbia, Fort Jackson, USC. Oh my, there's just so much. It would be ideal to get a hub in the Midlands. But anyway, that's great news, Marcia. Thank you so much. Bless you.
You're welcome. We're shipping our first 300 cubic yards of material after we got our STA certification. So we're really going, and we probably have another 400 cubic yards in the curing pile and maybe 750 in the aerated static pile.
Will you be looking for funding? Will you be applying for one of the bigger grants?
Well, what we're toying with, if we can have open a conversation with the other counties and maybe get some commitments to collection of getting a small rear loader to use to go pick the stuff up, to get the stuff in the truck.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That's great.
It eliminates any problems with getting the 40R, the 90-gallon carts dumped, as opposed to like a roll off would be a little problematic, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll follow up with you big time, and make sure that we can certainly help any way we can to make this happen. That's great news, Marsh. You made my day. I was having a bad week. Now I have at least the beginning of a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia, for sharing and getting the ball rolling for some good conversation. I know while you were speaking, a few other people put in the group chat just kind of some questions. So I wanted to make it to where everybody kind of saw that. But Courtney asked, is the hub and spoke program simply for the collection of food waste? And though we are having a lot of conversations about that, no, it can be used for all different types of commodities. So, some of this is we're trying to figure out what are some of the biggest issues that the counties and cities are facing in terms of handling material, and how can we link them together essentially to try to make it easier and more cost effective as well as like time efficient for handling that material. So I know, Ava, you put a question in there that said, would it be possible to get a list of potential hubs and the commodities that they are willing to receive? That's one reason why I wanted us to all be on this call today, is to try to have y'all share, what are the commodities that you would like to try to focus on? And, if there is an area that tends to be more well funded that could serve as a hub, let's try to identify those. And then, for those counties that or cities that don't have as much funding that could handle that, or like serve as a hub, then trying to link them together. So with that said, would anybody be willing to speak up and kind of share for them, if it's not food waste, what type of commodity it would be that they would want to potentially try to handle with other people involved? And if you don't have a mic, or if you are a little bit shyer, I know I'm putting people on the spot, you're welcome to put it in the group chat. And that way we can just kind of see what people are dealing with, or what they think would be the best use in their area of that funding in an ideal setting, I guess.
Grace Ann, I'll be glad to put together an email and follow up with all the counties and municipalities about who's interested in being this. Again, about a year ago, it may not have been that long, but when we were doing the Swiffer grant application, I have a list of potential counties, included them in the grant, and so I know for hubs it was Lexington, Horry, Greenville, obviously. I do think, I don't know if it was Charleston or the city. Charleston was going to work with Charleston County. There was talk about that, but we were lacking on spokes. So, but I'll follow up, and as early as the end of this week or beginning of next week, put that email out and ask who's still interested, and maybe with that group we can have another. We can do a short, 30-minute virtual meeting, but I'll do that just to get that information to the Ava that's, trying to put something together down in Clarendon, where that she would know other potential. I know she's working on it, but she would know other potential spokes in the area and or hub. Anyway, I hope that helps.
No, that would be great, Richard. And if anybody on the top of their head too, if there are any concerns about them being a spoke, would like to speak up and kind of share those concerns, that's something that for us, if we can kind of hear your thoughts of like what would be your reservations in trying to be a spoke, then we also would be. I think that would benefit us just to kind of see, how best we could help you all. So again, and I see, Ava, yes, we wish you had a mic right now as well, because we know you would definitely share. But and just from going through that experience with your contractor right now, it would be nice to have that. So I guess she was saying one challenge we're having is just simple participation. And is that kind of from a residential standpoint, or is that more from like getting other counties or cities on board? Other counties. Okay. Okay. Um,
Well, we can
well,
jump,
and
we're a ways away from getting any grants out there as far as awarded. We can help. We'll do all we can, and we may not be able to get everything done the first crack at this, but as soon as we start it, I think it will build, will grow. So, anyway.
And we know that being on a virtual setting and trying to have these conversations is not always the most fun thing.
Yeah.
So if you all have any thoughts or concerns that you'd like to send us over email or give us a call, we just like to hear your feedback, and that kind of gives us a little more insight as to how we can assist you all and connect you to the right folks for potentially building those partnerships. So you all now have uh, all of our emails. So again, feel free to reach out to us. And as Richard said, we can have one-on-one conversations, or if you are interested in working with another county or city, we can get you connected to them and kind of see that interest level is for their group as well. But I guess Richard or Steph or Woody, do you guys have any other thoughts you'd like to share before we let everybody go?
I think we're good. Oh, go ahead, Steph.
I put it in the chat, but if anybody needs one-on-one help, if you want us to review your application before you officially submit it, please let us know. You can email that SW Grant's email address, and we'll be happy to help you.
Thanks, Steph. Richard, I think you were also trying to say something.
Well, I'm good. I'm good. Anybody can call or email at any time. We work for you. We're delighted to work with you, and wonderful job you guys are doing. And just let us know what we can do. And if we're messing up on something, tell us.
We like that constructive feedback. So
that's right.
Well, thank you guys for letting us pick your brain a little bit today. And I'm sorry that we went a little bit over, but we really appreciate your time and all the effort that y'all are putting into, trying to make your funding stretch so that you can serve people throughout the state, but and keep our environment protected. But with that said, I'll let you guys go on and get some lunch. I know my stomach's starting to get a little bit tight. So you may hear multiple things coming from my computer screen soon. But again, feel free to reach out if you need anything. And we look forward to hearing from you in the near future. So everybody have a good rest of your days.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Grace Ann and crew. Thank you.
Thank you. Talk to y'all later. All right, bye.